and welcome to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. It's great to be back. I am your host, Rad Anderson, Executive Life Coach and Coach Assessor. And as always, I'm delighted to be here with John Andrew Williams, the founder of Coach Training EDU. How has your week been since we last met, John?
It's been good. It's been a lot. So we've had birthday parties. Seems like June, July, or May. Yeah, May through July is our birthday season. So those things have been happening. And then yet, here we are, at the end of another school year. The summer is coming around. Curriculum development gets back on the table, things like that. But it's been good. And how are you, Raj? How's your week been?
I'm good. I had a week off. And I realized how much I needed that week off for a mental recharge. And a week off seems like a luxury now. Whereas when you're in Europe, I lived in the UK, nobody thinks that much of having a week off. You would take a couple of weeks off. So I think it's reminding myself a bit about cultural differences in different places that you live. I became a bit of a workaholic when I moved to the US, and sometimes that's fine. I do love what I do. And I think it's tuning in, isn't it? And connecting with self and remembering that how important a recharge actually is.
Sounds lovely. I would love to do that too. Maybe someday over the rainbow. Wow.
So I was listening to you last week, John, and I was curious because you were talking last week about strategies, tactics, and plans, and loved what you were saying about the 4D cycle that you have, disappointment, doom, determination, and then doing something. And I do have some questions that have come in around business practices and niches. Yet, as you talk about your own business, where would you say you're at in the 4D cycle at the moment?
I think it's, I really mean it to be something that honors each of the stages. I think that there is an honoring of feeling down. There's an honoring of things not going the way that we want them to go for. So I think there is there's an element of when you're really honoring honoring each stage in the cycle, and knowing that going through sitting with doom doesn't mean you have to interact with it or go deeper into it or dwell in it. It just means to be with it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I personally and professionally got from coach training was this idea of being with is enough. Being with is remarkable in the sense of just being present and aware and trusting. Like there's a trust in our natural process that if we're with an emotion, that emotion is going to, that emotion will shift. And then there are all sorts of tools. Like, okay, so now how do you get from doom to determination? There are lots of pathways with that. One of my favorite that I've been playing with lately is yes questions. So it's the idea of, and I do this with, people who are getting ready for athletic events, especially like when you're nervous for something or you have a speaking gig or you're going to give a workshop or you're talking to a potential client or whatever, you can ask yourself a lot of questions like, have you prepared for this? Yes. Or, do you have the skill sets? Yes. Are you naturally creative and resourceful? Yes. Like, have I put in the work to prepare myself in order to accomplish this? Yes. Like you start asking yourself these questions. It's a bridge from doom to determination. So the cycle, I'd say, like in terms of business things, this is a cycle that's meant, it's almost a daily thing, like to almost go through okay, there's a disappointment. All right. Feel that disappointment, go into doom, go into determination, go back to do. It's a very quick cycle. And the point isn't to always stay in determination and doing, but it's to speed the cycle up. Same with core motivation. When something knocks us out of our most brilliant self, it's not about always staying in the most brilliant self. It's about recovering back to your brilliant self when something knocks you out. So in terms of business cycle, I mean, it sounds odd, but I hope to go through this cycle thousands of times, and to expect to go through it thousands of times. If you're doing something new, if you're doing something that like no one has done before, or you've never done before, it's not realistic to think that there's never going to be a disappointment. So why not just embrace disappointment?
It sounds like it could be a really great tool to actually use in a coaching session, couldn't it? Because I have heard coaches before perhaps be wary or want to shy away, say if doom kind of emotions show up with a client. Yet you and I have talked before around like toxic positivity, or what are these emotions telling us? What is the purpose and use of the doom in a sense? So,
Mhm.
what guidance would you give to coaches who may feel wary when these kinds of emotions show up for their client?
Right, right. I think some coaches seek out problems. You seek out something to solve or something that uh, proves that the coaching session is worth the time and energy and effort that you put into that coaching session. And sometimes I feel this, even now I'm working with someone, I think, okay, like when, what are we doing here? Like, what's the point? Like, what are you hoping to get out of this session? And sometimes a client will say, well, everything is going great and there's no problem here. And that's fine. But looking at where their disappointments are, where they go into doom, where they go into those not so great places in a coaching session, uh, people, the coaches go there to extract insight and learning, not to solve it. And that's an interesting thing that's a fascinating thing. It's a subtle difference, but it's a very important difference when you're looking at the coaching process. And when coaches feel like their clients are just in that doom, when they can't get out of the determination, when it just feels like, okay, now we're stuck here. There almost is and you have listening sessions where it feels like there's like a gasp or like almost an incessant uh, solution offering, that advice giving. Have you tried this? What about that? Well, it's not so bad. And that's where you feel like you get into that toxic positivity of not allowing this, not honoring the do, not honoring this, the feeling. And I think that's what people are talking about, toxic positivity. You hear it sometimes with parenting too, when a parent will tell a child like, oh, like it's not okay to feel this way. Let's say that a child is upset because the door, their shoes are on the wrong feet and it's uncomfortable to them and they're throwing a massive fit. You're like, well, this is not a fair situation. You just switch the shoes. But to not allow them to feel that massive disappointment, no matter what it is, we've all been taught that that massive disappointment is not okay for us to feel, or many of us have been taught this. And we carry it on into our adult lives where, disappointments are not okay. So we do everything we can to try to avoid them. When we're in them, then we try to offer advice because it's uncomfortable when someone else is in that space. So I think what coaching does on a deep level, like what coach training does, is it trains people to be simply with whatever's. And that being with is it's transformative because you don't have to do much else. You can really truly trust that natural, yeah, that natural instinct to once you're being with something, like a solution arrives, learning happens, you put your shoes, the shoes get on the right feet. you know that's where we're at.
It definitely sounds like you're talking from experience. I know you're working.
He's just now understanding, like, it just feels uncomfortable, so he course corrects on his own. And it's almost like it's a barometer for how you're doing in some way. Like your emotion set. It's a barometer. It's a measurement tool for you're trying to figure out, what uh Now, how are you when what tolerance level do you have when the shoes are on the wrong feet? And sometimes it's low, sometimes it's low, and that's okay too.
Yeah. So observing yourself as well, isn't it? There's lots of lessons here from kids in terms you talked about tolerance levels, and there's learning here and feedback. And switching gear just a little bit, and we're talking about learning and thinking about feedback. And we had a question in. What are your thoughts? Do coaches use performance reviews in their own practice?
They're required to, but it is best practice. And I think the certification process requires it. So in certification, you have to go through performance reviews, which I think is actually really never thought of it in that sense as like, as an annual thing, but uh, yeah, certification, especially going through PCC level or MCC level are somewhat like performance reviews. I mean, you just went through the MCC level, Raj. As a performance review, how was that?
Um, Frightening, personally. When you want something and you've been practicing and working towards it. Yet aside from that, it was great to get back into that space actually of self-assessing. And I think it's so important to listen to yourself and record your recording as much as you can. I don't get to as much because I work with a lot of leaders in corporations, so I don't always get the permission to do that. So it's good to get some permission, and in preparation for that performance review, revisiting that self assessment. So, aside from fears, pleasant surprises as well. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm doing better than maybe I thought I was in some spaces. And also, good reflection of, oh, there's some bad habits potentially may have crept in here, because I think it can be easy to lose that as well if you wear a number of different hats. If you are a consultant and a mentor, for example, you're a trainer, and if you are doing coaching, but also part of your role might be that you add some consulting in there. So I loved listening to myself again. I love pushing myself. But I love learning. So it's great to have a look at the competencies again and challenge myself. Great challenge.
I think when coaches are out in getting client mode and business building mode, the performance review really is: are you retaining your clients? Are your clients referring you to other people? Are you starting to gain the momentum of having a current client base to help get new people into your client base? This is what I mean. I think that's a very natural performance review. And I think there is nothing better than recording your sessions periodically and listening to them. You will get so much from it, especially if you have another coach who can also listen at the same time. Listen to your recordings as well. There's so much value in learning from listening to record, like watching yourself, no matter what it is. It could be riding a mountain bike and you see a video of yourself. Like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay, let me fix that. But someone can describe it to you forever, and we have this tool, and it's amazing if you think about it. Unbelievable. Like, we have the ability to record ourselves and watch it. It's almost like we have the ability to be. Have you ever wondered how other people see you? Like if they're like really truly like, how do other people see me kind of thing? Well, you can do that. You can totally do that. You can get a video camera and do it right. We're doing it right now. This is amazing. Oh, mind blowing. And it's an amazing tool. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's an amazing tool.
And the more you do it, the easier it becomes, doesn't it? So,
Absolutely.
there's,
Absolutely.
people maybe, oh, I don't know. And I hear all the time when I'm doing overviews, I don't like listening to myself. And then by the third overview, they've listened to themselves that much that it becomes a lot easier. So the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Even with
And
that beautiful British accent, you're thinking, nah, I can't do it. You really sound like that. All right.
yeah, I used to years ago. I actually was lucky enough to go on a leadership program where part of it was speech coaching. So they recorded you and then you had to listen back and watch yourself and look at your body language and tone and how you were pronouncing things. And I'd never done that before. And it was so daunting at the time. Um, and now I just think, well, you've got to be courageous, haven't you? And there are still times I listen back to myself and I think, oh, maybe I could have done that differently. Yet I'd rather take the risk than not take the risk to put myself out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah. I learned that from John. 'Cause John goes for it and he takes action and he doesn't worry about perfection. So yeah, that I have been inspired by that, John.
I'm not
Um,
worried about perspective. It's scratch. Perfection. I trust perfection comes later. Let's put
yeah, you are courageous though, aren't you? You will take the leap.
I'll leave. I will. I will. And I think there's an element of trust, like trust in my ability to figure it out. Like, all right, like, let me jump in there and figure it out. And then there is frustration involved when it doesn't happen right away, or I do things and it actually makes the situation worse. And I think it's one of the things that really helps me professionally is thinking, all right, like this is of course, it's just if you're doing something that you've never done before, there's going to be an element of learning. There has to be. So if you build that into, the cost of doing business, it's more about refining the structures and systems around the actual work that you do on a weekly basis. And if those things are strong and you're getting solid feedback from the world, then you're going to be okay. And it feels like there's safety in the work. And everyone has their own answer. Where do you find your safety? Is it safety in the morning routine? Like there's this one song I've been really into lately, famously, it's like Over the Rainbow, where he talks about this idea that people think that if you're rich, you have all this money and fame, like you're somehow made it, like you're over the rainbow. But he's talking about no, like everyone has the same blood flow. It's all about we're all similar, we're all the same. We have similar hopes, dreams, and fears. And the idea is like, where's your over the rainbow? How do you find your over the rainbow on a daily basis? And once you're there, can you bring it back? Can you go and like roll your sleeves up and do the work? And sometimes it's not glamorous. Like we had a sprinkler break an hour before this. I'm there with like level sticks in the sprinklers. Getting cleaned up to go do a Facebook Live. Here we are. It's the willingness to do whatever is necessary so things thrive. And I feel like that's what if I could go back to my old self who is just starting out, 10, 15 clients, but had a belief and a dream that this is going to be possible. I can see where I am now. It's really unbelievable. The body of work that goes in from here to there. Is it worth it? Absolutely, 100%. Knowing that the impact they're having on the world. And it takes all of it. It takes the work. It takes you. It takes a very clear vision of the impact you want on the world, because it will get tough. And when it gets tough, if you have that vision, it will pull you through.
So what could be a question that people can ask themselves when it is tough or when it's not glamorous?
Yeah, I think I've been really leaning into this idea of building stamina, where if it's not going well, am I still doing the actions, like, so it's almost like a training session. It's almost like, okay, I'm just doing this so I can get, you know, basically when the tide does turn, I have the stamina to be able to hang and do like a 2-hour working meeting and really pound it out, or sit with something that's really hard and do these things that are challenging, back to back meetings. We're in hour 6 of this. Like, can I still row this boat? And that's I think that's a really powerful perspective to be in. Like not necessarily externally referenced. Is there are things going the way they need to go externally, but internally referenced? Am I doing meaningful work on a daily basis? Yes or no? I think
It
that's where I go to.
it reminds me of what you talked about a few weeks back around in one day alone, there is that mixture of the dreaming and the doing, and the things that you have to do. Now I was came back from vacation even this morning. I was like, I don't feel like adulting today. There's tax returns to do and forms to fill in, and bank was requesting certain information and new systems to put in for new contracts that I'm looking at, which the work will be great once I start it. Yet, some of it's boring to me. I'm not going to lie. And I thought, I don't feel like adulting yet. What is the bigger vision and the bigger why here? And these things must be done really. They have to be put into place in business and to grow your business as well. But focusing on, okay, right, I'm going to sit outside with a cup of tea a bit later today and sit into some of that dreaming, because it makes then that the doing or those pieces that don't excite me not bearable, but I can accept them.
Right. And what coaching does is it allows you to dream. It really does. It allows you to clarify that dream, say that dream out loud, like talk about that dream, and talking about it, really clarifying it, saying things out loud, sharing it with other people. It's very valuable. It, when things aren't going the way you want them to, the dream becomes more real than the present negative circumstances. And when the vision becomes something that, yeah, that's what we're going for. That's it. Like, oh, I want to develop a successful, financially sustainable practice. I want to have this impact on the world. I believe in this value set, and I really want to make sure that other people can see the benefit and the value of this profession. That leads to a very fulfilling daily experience. That doesn't mean that there's not disappointment or doom, or there's not that cycle. That cycle's part of it. But the level of fulfillment starts to it starts to provide a momentum that when things get challenging, you then know, okay, like you can trust that level of fulfillment is going to come back relatively soon.
And what tips do you have for continuing to build stamina?
I think an awareness of it is probably the biggest. Like, even an awareness of, okay, let's say that there is a certain there's a certain number you want to see in your bank account where you don't have to put in energy to prop up your emotion, right? And there's that number. And if you see it, you go, yay, okay, we're doing great. Good. Like you don't need to put in active energy. You just feel it, right? So there's zero effort. And then there's numbers in bank accounts that go, oh my goodness, I have to put in all this effort. I have to prop myself up. I have to lean into that dream. I have to, row. I have to row in order to make my emotion, bring my emotion back. It's an understanding and awareness that, yes, of course, that is what you're signing up for. If you're entrepreneuring, if you're building your own thing, you're signed that's the work. That's that inner work that you have to get comfortable. Or else it just feels like I've seen it. Coaches, who are just starting out, that you can almost feel the financial stress and pressure of what they're dealing with. I was there too. And at a certain point in time, you have to make friends with that stress and pressure and use it. Use it and say, yeah, I feel this pressure. I'm going to take this action step. Building stamina. And it's not just action stamina. There's that propping up emotion stamina. Does it toxic positivity? Not really. I mean, toxic positivity would say, oh, don't feel disappointment, or don't feel doom, or don't feel the emotion of it. It's more like a strategic positivity or tactical positivity. Like, okay, we're not allowing ourselves to dwell in this any longer because it's no longer practically useful. I've sat with this enough. I'm here. I'm with it. Okay, now I feel like I'm going back. You can almost feel the determination just like naturally want to come. And so then the question is, okay, does it naturally come, or am I pushing it too much? Is it that internal? It's about stamina. Like, how much can you be with its stamina, and then how much can you move it forward stamina. Um, yeah, stamina is a beautiful word. It's a Greek word. It basically means stem, something that holds something up. Uh, and yeah, it's yeah, it's something that when you're oriented towards stamina versus results, that's where you find. For me, that's the over the rainbow. Can you already putting in the work? Yes, good. Okay.
Yeah. It makes me think of even going to the gym. You would not go to the gym once and expect to be in great shape, and working out, whatever it is, however that looks for you. It's the more you go, the more you do it, and you build those muscles and you break them down. And sometimes it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts in business, and I've been there and had many things that failed, but for me, there's no failures, only feedback. That those things that didn't work out have led me to here right now. But there have been times where it's been the stretch and the push and the pull, and it's been painful. And sometimes, like going to the gym when I own a spin class, and it's the next day, it's that good pain, and I feel it. It's like worked out.
Sure.
Any final words of wisdom from you, John, before we close out today?
I just really appreciate the space you create, Raj. Let me read a little bit, thinking about these ideas. I've been reading a science book, bedtime, posted to put myself and the boys to sleep. This idea of weather pressures, like, it's just mind boggling. It's just mind blowing just to think of the number of inventions that have happened since the beginning of humanity to now that have allowed us to live and be in this space where we have all this technology and knowledge at our fingertips. Absolutely mind boggling. And uh, I think that what this requires, what I'm seeing and feeling is with the computer revolution, with the information revolution, with so much noise, with so like even our ability to do this, and we're 3,000 miles away. Uh, Internal space is the next frontier. And I think what coaching does is like get an awareness of, okay, so how, like, what's your internal cycle? What are your cycles? And that's what I would encourage you. If you're in this, entrepreneurship, coaching, bringing it into organizations, or, in the coaching space, becoming aware of your own cycles is even that, I think, that much more important. And we help other people do it all day, every day too. So yeah, define yours. It's unique to you. No one can find it except you. And this is what coaching is uniquely designed for. Go for it.
Well, thank you, John. Grateful for you. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. Thank you for everyone for listening. Please send us your questions. We look forward to answering them next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.